Welcome back to the Serving My Master podcast. Thank you for joining me today. As we continue going through the initial mitzvahs, commandments given to us in the Torah, we find ourselves with the incredible mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, which now the Torah shows us with incredible detail. Not only the incredible mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, which in itself, as we will see, was the essence of showing us how to ignore every other sign in the world and remember our purpose, but is actually also showing us the incredible detail of the many positive commandments and negative commandments, the mitzvahs aseh and mitzvahs lo aseh, invested and involved in the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. So in the beginning, if we look into it, what we see is, in essence, the Korban Pesach was given as a mitzvah in a time when they lived in a country where the human masters, the Egyptians, felt and believed that the lamb was actually something to idolize, where they actually worshipped the lamb. In other words, everything around them was telling them to protect and be loyal and faithful to this animal. And the Torah is telling us, even when you might be put in danger by your human masters to fulfill a commandment, to fulfill your service in the service of the master of the world, this is exactly what we're supposed to do. And Klal Yisrael, as a nation of servants, did exactly that without fear or hesitation. Klal Yisrael understood that everything depends on the service to the master of the world and nothing else matters. And if we continue to look and see the incredible detail of how we're supposed to prepare the Korban Pesach, of what we're supposed to eat it with, of what we're not supposed to eat it with, of the fact that we're not allowed to have anything with it in the house when we eat the Korban Pesach, as far as chametz is concerned. What we see is the Torah is preparing us for Har Sinai, preparing us for the life of a servant, where we know and understand that not only the big things need to be in service of the master of the world, not only do the big things have the incredible factors in it that are in service of the master of the world, but rather every detail that what we have in our home, what we don't have in our home, the way we prepare it, the way we don't prepare it, every single detail needs to be in service of the master of the world, or else the entire thing is worthless. Of course, showing us that the idea of being a servant is not just something that is relevant when we walk into a shul. The idea of being a servant is not relevant when we walk into Yom Kippur. But rather, the idea of being a servant is something that is relevant 24/7, 365 days a year, always and forever. Being a servant is knowing exactly what you have in your house and why. Knowing exactly what is not supposed to be in your house, knowing what you're supposed to take in, how you're supposed to cook something, and so forth. And of course, then we have what the Torah has given us as the reasoning, as the understanding that the Korban Pesach was something that represented both the fact that at the same time that we are servants, we are also princes, we're b'nei melachim. Understanding that we have a Korban Pesach represents the fact not to leave anything from it for the next day, because a prince that relies on his father's wealth would not do that. Us as princes and servants at the same time, understanding that there is no room for concern, there is absolutely no room for worry in a servant's life, that this servant knows he's also a prince. We know that Hashem will provide for us so that we can continue in His service. Hashem will provide for us so that we can continue in our path to become ultimate servants. And of course we know that the Korban Pesach was given to us forever, not just that year, so that we will remember the incredible miracles that were shown to us and shown to the world. so that we will give over the knowledge that we know that we are servants, that we know that there is a master. We will give over that knowledge generation to generation, not with the claim that we merely believe that there is a master of the world, but with the clear knowledge that was given over father to son for all generations, and being able to repeat the incredible miracles that happened with the pure and only reasoning of showing us there is a master of the world. Everything in it, nature itself, bends to his will and to the will of his servants, as long as they are in service of the master of the world. This incredible mitzvah with all its detail, every single thing, every single mitzvah say of how it should be prepared, of how it should be consumed, of how it should be cooked, every single loises of how not to leave anything over. Every single detail showing us again of how we have to incorporate every detail of our lives into the service of the master of the world. But of course, it also takes us around the other way, showing us how someone who did not commit to a life of service, whether this is a non-Jew or someone who did not conform to the mitzvah of bris milah, someone who for whatever reason did not perform this mitzvah, did not perform what we discussed as the eternal signature, the eternal acceptance that our entire being is in service of the master of the world, a person like that has no reason to be allowed to eat of this Korban Pesach. Because if one does not understand that their entire being is here to be a tool and a vessel in service of the master of the world, what point would there be in trying to give them another detail, in trying to give them another commandment, in trying to give them a Korban Pesach which in essence tells us again that every detail of our lives needs to be in service. Someone who doesn't understand that their entire essence is here to be in service of the master of the world, of course will not gain anything from knowing that every detail in that life should be in service of the master of the world. How incredible, how grateful do we need to be for these lessons that were given to us even before we were given the Torah on Har Sinai. Even before we were given the incredible guide to every detail in our life, we were shown and we were prepared by telling us every detail in you as a person is here to serve the master of the world. And not only can you do that by doing the incredible mitzvahs and commandments that will be given to you, but actually in preparation, actually in knowing that in every detail of the way you live your life on a daily basis can and needs to be in service of the master of the world. And of course, that was the ultimate preparation for Har Sinai, knowing that everything in our lives is only here to be in service of the master of the world. And with that knowledge, of course, one is fully prepared to receive the commandments, to receive not something that is merely an obligation or a restriction, but a beautiful guide on how we can perfect our service, on how we can do human actions which will higher our level of service so that we can ultimately reach our ultimate goal. Thank you again for joining me today. I look forward to hearing your feedback and your questions. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.